Ah, yes. Let us get back to our regularly scheduled complaining about women. Spent a couple of videos trying to do my absolute best to fight back against this dumbassery that is. Well, it's just racism. But today we need to start talking about sexism. Give in to my sexism, my bitterness, as we go over a new video, or relatively new to the time I record this, commentary that Tomi Lahren has made. Now on my channel I have gone face to face with Tomi Lahren's nonsense. I remember a video response I did some time ago, and it would appear that she just has not changed her tune at all. It seems like the major grift, if not, I don't even like calling it a grift. It's just culturally contextualized. The regularly scheduled complaining, bitching at men, nagging at men to do X thing for women, it just doesn't stop. It's a quite interesting piece of our modern internet culture, if not just our culture and relationships with women in general. It's quite fascinating how far it has come, despite the fact that it doesn't really seem to do much or nothing but piss men off. Seems the most galvanizing thing for young males oftentimes is not being nagged at, but the promise that they will be actually receive a female's nice, sweet, warm embrace. So what did Tomi Lahren do this time? I wanted to do some commentary on a conversation she was a participant in with Andrew Wilson. She said, or they had this exchange here I thought was quite interesting that I will bring up later. They had this little spat here.
But is currently a professional baseball coach. So is he not a masculine man? I mean, I'm confused here. What's your concept of a masculine man? Mine is a man who respects me.
Yeah, that misses the point, though. Like, you're still not contending with the argument that I'm
what's
making.
your point?
I'm saying inside of society, right this second, right, masculinity is not only punished, but also women on the right, covert feminists on the right, are constantly and consistently talking about how they need to have privilege in society. I want men. Their version of masculinity is men who take care of us, men who protect us, men who do all of this. Those are all duties that men have towards women. Great. What are the duties that women have towards men? What are the duties that women have towards anything? What do men get out of this arrangement? What are we getting out of this arrangement? Can you tell me?
Most men are born to be protectors and providers. I can't imagine my dad saying, you know what, to my mom, you know what, I'm not going to be a protector and a provider unless you do this. That's not how real men operate. Real men are protectors and providers, and they marry women who hopefully have some virtue, but also bring a lot to the table as well, that are great mothers, great wives, caretakers of the home. There's nothing wrong with being a traditional wife and mother. You're misunderstanding me if you think that I think that women should just be out doing whatever they want. I think that there are gender roles that should be respected. But I don't think a man needs to get something out of it to be a manly man, a protector, and a provider. If you think you need to get something out of it, I quite frankly don't consider you a real man.
Now, I wanted to make a video where I discussed what I believe is the ultimate duty of the modern woman, but we'll probably sprinkle a little bit of that commentary here and really direct it in a more focused video. The reason why I wanted to bring it up today is to show you a wee bit of context to some comments I remember Andrew Wilson making that I fundamentally disagree with. Not in the worst way, you know, I still respect him, and I just disagree with him here, and you'll see where the disagreement lies. More to what most of this video is really going to be about is this commentary that Tomi Lahren made recently, I believe, on Fox News, where she's complaining about how males are still not doing enough of a thing. It goes a little something like this.
It's a major problem. And, you know, Speaker Johnson has been talking about those maybe deadbeat folks that are on Medicaid, and maybe some of those folks are the stay-at-home sons. We don't know. But I'll tell you this, leave it to Gen Z to rebrand laziness and social awkwardness as something cutesy, like a stay-at-home son. They did much the same thing with quiet quitting, where you can go to work and do less. And if you call it quiet quitting, it's somehow better. But Laura, I got to tell you, this is also a big problem when it comes to, I think, declining birth rates, people not getting married and having children, you know, that's a big problem. They blame it on women. Well, look at what young women have to choose from. The pickings are slim. Yes, we might have a feminism problem in America, but it's the feminization of men. There are a lot of young women out there that want to get married. They want to have kids. They want to have stable families. But there are a lot of young men out there who want to live in mama's basement and order DoorDash. And therein lies a big part of the problem.
Now, I don't have any intentions on going through that video piece by piece, shot for shot, like I typically do or normally do in most response videos. Instead, I'm going to discuss more of the major themes, the major ideas, and commentate on something that I think is extremely important and hilariously lacking, except from other people like, you know, Alexander Grace recently. I'm actually glad he's one of the bigger voices finally who is just saying what I've been saying for quite some time now. We'll get to it. So, Tomi Lahren's commentary. Again, this isn't really anything new. Tomi, like most, unfortunately, conservative women, I think of Billy, another conservative lady I've made video responses to. It seems the only setting they know how to do to galvanize men is to shame them and beat them into submission with their nagging commentary. Now, the logic, I guess, from their mind is that if men are strong creatures, or if men are supposed to be strong, if men will to the desire of having strength, then they will be galvanized by their picketings, by their BS. They'll be galvanized to prove their worth at the suggestion that they are not good people. It's a shame-based motivational tactic. It's never worked very well with me, but it is something I've noticed that a lot of women employ. They employ the challenge of the male ego. They employ the challenge of male's pride. If they can put you down enough, it will force you to want to prove them wrong. Your ego will cause you action. Of course, this can backfire hilariously if, one, the individual doesn't have a very strong ego, and two, if the individual doesn't like you. 3, this can backfire if the individual hates you and they do rise to the occasion so they can have the power to obliterate you. A lot of ladies seem to not grasp this, or more accurately, a lot of conservative ladies who decide to employ this tactic don't understand that you're trying to draw blood from a stone when you have a group of young males that feel like they don't really get much of nothing out of the grand challenge of trying to court a woman to begin with. To be quite frank, and I'm going to make this point several more times, because lots of people I've noticed in the manosphere, they kind of are in one of two camps, right? Kind of, for the most part, obviously, those two camps didn't break down further, but there's the camp of rise to the occasion and the camp of, nah, nigga, I'm not doing that. But what both sides kind of really miss of rise to the occasion, which is to say, do as much as you can to looks max and be as attractive to the lady as much, you know, like you hit your genetic cap, rise to the occasion or whatever. You have the, nah, I'm not doing that, who say the juice ain't worth the squeeze. And honestly, my friend, this is, it's a lot to get got. Obviously, the more MGTOW and those who worry about divorce are also, I guess MGTOW, there's also dudes that aren't MGTOW, but also are worried about all the different divorce and custody laws in the court system and that. Essentially what I'm saying is that there's a lot of deterrent, a lot of fear, and to be quite frank, disdain of attempting or what a relationship with a woman would be like. And it's not unfounded, and that's where Tomi Lahren is lacking in her commentary, lacking in her understanding, lacking in whether she is actually as stupid as she might sound. I mean, that remains to be seen. Who knows? Like, maybe she understands it and she's just playing a part. I don't know. The fact remains, most of this commentary, I like that. Most of this commentary, though, of males giving up, males being alone, males not really trying or caring too much to approach or interact with women, is lacking. Again, from the more manosphere side of things, most people look at the fact that divorce will ruin you and destroy you. They'll also look at the fact that a marriage can kind of be craptastic. And the rise of the occasion guys, you know, the more, you know, fresh and fits, red pill type of, you know, becoming a thing that women want type crowd, completely circumvent this other reality. And that reality is that ultimately trying to have relationships with women, it sucks. It sucks. It's not fun. It's not even just that it's not fun, it's not rewarding either. Tomi Lahren says males, they would rather sit in their mother's house. Well, what would they need a house for if they can't have a family? Just to live in a house by yourself? Spend $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 to just sit around in a big room, 3 bedrooms with nothing in it? What would they need to rise to the occasion for if they can't even just enjoy just the simple pleasures of conversing with a woman? Why would they need to rise to the occasion if they can't just go on a nice date down the bloody street or to get some bloody ice cream? If they can't engage in just a normal movie date with someone and speak about the movie intellectually after the fact? Males can't even get the simple pleasures of interacting with a young lady. Why would they go the distance to continue to not get the simple pleasures of interacting with the lady? Unfortunately, a lot of how even like ladies interact in the mating game is to kind of just bombard you with sexuality. They don't really bombard you with fun, goodness, morality, integrity. They don't really bombard you with the strength of character of someone that will be a great friend to you as life happens to you. They do not strike you as individuals that can, dare I say, stand the rain. See if you guys get that reference. I can't believe I went as many years as I did without knowing about that song. But the fact remains, Tomi Lahren, again, is stuck in the ego-driven criticism or ego-driven form of motivation that may have worked with some young men that want to prove themselves. But in a world where young men recognize proving yourselves worthy to get an individual that still doesn't really like you and still doesn't respect you and still doesn't care about you is gooftastic. And the ones who didn't prove themselves kind of only recognize that the best you can get out of being what women want is kind of to just have, well, relations with them. And to be quite honest with you, that also kind of sucks. It's like masturbating with another person. It feels good then, but when you're done, you feel shame, you feel alone, you feel empty because you can't actually have what you really desire. And Tomi Lahren is in no position to even begin to attempt to, well, give men what they desire. You see, Matt Walsh also made a video, and to be quite honest with you, I would love to punch Matt Walsh in the face several times, but we're not here for that. Matt Walsh makes a video, and he finally begins. I don't know what took these niggas this goddamn long to finally get here, but hey, let's be happy that we're here. He finally challenges Tomi Lahren with this, like here.
Supposed tough love targeted at young men. We've heard that for years. Well, my question is, when will they start directing even an ounce of that criticism and that toughness towards young women?
It's important that we finally get more voices. What's wrong with me? It's important we finally get more voices to actually start asking the critical question. Well, Tomi Lahren, why the flip don't you challenge women to be better? Why do you have such strong bunting criticism for males, but none for young women? It's a great question. The answer to the question is very obvious. One, women are deified and beyond reproach. But more than that, it's not just that. It's also, two, men are just culturally stronger than women. At least the perception of men is that they are far stronger than women. They can withstand pain. To be a man is to be able to withstand pain. Not just withstand pain, but withstand pain willingly. That's what it means to be a man. As such, to be challenged, to be bombarded, both spiritually and emotionally, and of course physically, is par for the course. So from Tomi's point of view, you fail at being a male if you do not rise to the occasion. From her point of view, that's how men are supposed to be. They just are. They're just supposed to do a thing. They're just supposed to be. So it's easy for her, and everybody really, to constantly bitch at and constantly bombard man with pain, whether again emotional or physical or spiritual, because that's what it means to be a man. But what does it mean to be a woman? Tomi can't challenge women the way she challenges men because she doesn't know how to. Which brings us to the disagreement I had with my best good friend, Andrew Wilson. I'm kidding, we're not best good friends. Not for lack of desire, it's just factually, we're just not. And if he wanted to talk to me more often, he could. He's awesome. Anyway, the fact is, I was watching a live stream he was doing, I don't know if I could find the clip, but I remember disagreeing with him quite a bit. And he was making a point that Tomi Lahren couldn't argue against the sisterhood, so to speak, because they would lambaste her. They'd turn their backs on her, right? She would be attacked by them. And I disagreed with that fundamentally. Tomi Lahren can't speak on this stuff, not because she's afraid of the sisterhood, not because it's a part of her grip, not because it would be too hard for her to garner a female audience if she decided to do it. No. The answer may be a little bit more depressing, depending on who you ask, but Tomi Lahren can't do what Matt Walsh is saying because Tomi Lahren doesn't have criticisms for women because she doesn't know what women are supposed to be or do. Tomi Lahren can't tell women to be better because in her mind she doesn't know how women are supposed to be better. In her mind she can't even, let's take a step back. Andrew asked Tomi this question again. Let's go back to it.
Towards men, what are the duties that women have towards anything? What do men get out of this arrangement? What are we getting out of this arrangement? Can you tell me?
Tomi couldn't even answer the question. In fact, she could obfuscate rather easily because it's a strongly defined cultural ideal of what it means to be a man. So strongly defined, again, she reflexively goes back into it and she says, I can't imagine my grandpappy or whoever the flip she said.
Providers. I can't imagine my dad saying, you know what, to my mom, you know what, I'm not going to be a protector and a provider unless you do this. That's not how real men operate.
Asking what he gets from his wife. Again, it's not because Tomi Lahren is afraid of the sisterhood she can't answer the question. She can't answer the question because she doesn't have an answer to the question. Duh. What is a woman supposed to do? How is a woman supposed to be? How is a woman supposed to appeal to males? In fact, interestingly enough, when women do things that appeals to males, rather stereotypically, they do indeed get lambasted. I'm thinking of, if we were to deviate slightly, Cooking with Kaya. I was going to make a point about Cooking with Kaya, which I know sounds like it goes off the beaten path, but it didn't. But I'm going to save that. I'm going to make another video about Cooking with Kaya. It's going to be its own dissertation. But the point that I was making was that, honestly, the portrayal of femininity that Kaya performed on the internet was so low-level and basic, yet shot... what's the analogy I want to use? It went viral. I don't know. I can't think of an analogy at the top of my head. Kaya became extremely popular with like the most stereotypical base reflection of being a female ever. Which to me kind of indicates just how thirsty young men are just for the fantasy of just having a woman around. Again, it's an interesting thought and dissertation I'll go into more detail about, but that was the point that I was making to combat why Tomi honestly really can't talk too much or really give any idea or any ideals against or for how young ladies are supposed to be and how they're supposed to improve this. Interestingly enough, Tomi has completely resigned herself to complete helplessness and can only blame men for not working harder to get, well, nothing really. One thing that I always found was pretty interesting is how young ladies, in their minds, they always imagine a great male, an attractive male, some, a king a king amongst peasants, so to say, the one who can pull the sword out of the stone, the master of the kusanagi, one who was trained by Tsukuyomi. I don't know. They always imagine, the son of Bruce Wayne, I guess, to come and raise them up. And it's interesting because, per what Tomi said, she believes that the men that women have to select from are just so piss poor. If it be the case that they're so piss poor, then women aren't missing out on anything. And if it is the death of the human race they desire because they lack the capacity to love the other half of their species, then young ladies should just have to accept that. I find it interesting how young ladies can't accept that they decide that most men are not worthy of them and thus are a part of or contributing to the complete annihilation of the human species. And instead of saying, yeah, let this motherfucker burn because none of you are worthy, they instead say, hey, you guys who I don't want should try harder. Now you see, when you say that out loud, it sounds stupid, doesn't it? Because it is stupid. In fact, one of the most interesting thoughts I've always had especially when people complain about all these lazy dudes. Obviously, the basement door dashing dudes, the desire to have sex bot dudes, they love AI dudes. Like, I've always found it quite fascinating how people have such disdain for males that they don't desire, for males that they don't care about, for males they don't love. And you see, that's really what this all kind of comes down to, ultimately. It all really comes down to this idea, this meritocratic, that's not a word, but I'm going to use it, idea that love, care, consideration for a man is something that you obtain through merit, through hard work, through a reflection of you proving that you are an individual whom a woman should pick. Ironically, they believe that, yet besmirch the nice guy. Ironically, they believe that, yet they besmirch the nice guy. Ironically, they believe that, yet they besmirch incels that don't do anything, who have given up. Ironically, they believe that love is something that you obtain only after you've proven yourself worthy, and then hate nice guys when they feel upset that they did the thing you told them to do to prove themselves worthy. It's interesting that they like to besmirch and complain and bitch at males who are downtrodden, weakened, who are unattractive, not good enough for a woman. And then when they commit themselves to their own simple pleasures and masturbations, you hate them ever more. You already said they weren't worthy of love, yet you continue to hate them. You continue to lambaste them. Why is that? It's quite a fascinating thought, if you ask me. But beyond that thought, again, the more important thing, the more critical thing here, is that Tomi Lahren doesn't like, let alone loves, men. Men are not human beings to her. Men are human doings. This is something the manosphere, the MRAs have noticed for very many years now. It's something that's kind of run a little bit out of favor in the space. But it's a reality that men are not loved as an end unto themselves, as people unto themselves. And what Tomi can't recognize, what no one really seems to recognize, is that the human mind can only withstand so much pain and so much pressure before it snaps. The human body works the same way, actually. You see, the thing about weightlifting, strength training, conditioning, is that it's putting your body under a slight amount of stress, just enough to trigger the change in your body, but not too much stress that you destroy or damage the muscle altogether. It's those micro healing that makes you stronger over a period of time. You put anything under too much stress immediately, it snaps, it breaks. And no one gives men the time to recover. No one gives men the consideration to recover. No one gives men the incentive to recover. It's true that there's a lot of depressed males that don't really want to try too hard anymore. And to be honest with you, it sucks for their own sake. But that's the thing. You have to care about them for their own sake. They have to know that doing good things for themselves is a good thing for themselves. But you've raised a generation of young men. You've raised young men since time immemorial, really, that the only thing that's worthy or valuable about them is how they do external to themselves and what they do for other people. Again, this is not hidden at all in what Tomi Lahren says or believes. The only problem is, if there's nothing to fight for, if there's nothing to show for, if there's nothing to gain, then all of these lessons, all this conditioning folds in on itself. It crumbles. All that's left is a broken spirit that can't do the thing it wants to do. Tomi is foolish, silly in many different ways, but she's foolish in this way. She's foolish in the way that ultimately women have a job to do. And that job, interestingly enough, is to give absolution and validation to men for doing a thing, for doing something. If men must upkeep, if men must protect, if men must lead society, then women, if they were to have a duty, must give men a reason to do so. It's true that some things are good unto itself. And it's true that some things should be done for its own sake and for its own right. It's something I certainly believe. But it's also true that human beings are incentive-based creatures. They are creatures that do things to get some type of result. They are reinforced by good things happening to them consistently. And it's also true that some human beings have the willpower, the ability to persevere through things and delay their gratification to get to a higher state. But of course, all of that perseverance comes because at the end, there's a higher state. It's also true that human beings have the ability to weather quite the storm for the people that they love and they care about. But what happens when they don't have people they love? What happens when they don't have anyone they care about? What happens when all they have is dirt to eat constantly? What happens when all they have is shame, embarrassment, and defeat? Well, what happens is you get a bunch of them that don't care anymore. And at worst, you get a bunch of them that want to destroy the world that they live in. And to be quite honest with you, it's those type of people I have oftentimes wished my videos would abate. The reason why I wish to give men a little bit of comfort and a little bit of skill, critical thinking, and some thought, some comfort just for a moment, is to give peace to that rage, to give peace to that depression, to give peace to that defeat, and to express that there is a better tomorrow if we recognize the crap that we've been given and make a choice to make it better. Tomi Lahren is not one of those people that's ever going to work to try to make things better, because she's stuck on the paradigm of playing for teams. The conservative team, the female team, whatever team that she's on. But in reality, if we're going to make things better, we have to tell Tomi Lahren, or women like Tomi Lahren, to politely shut the fuck up and actually give us a reason to try in society. We also have to be clear to make sure we maintain our own virtue and become good, strong people because it's the right thing to do and for our own sake. Because the truth of the matter is, if you are a young man watching this video, I do not believe the Myron Gaines-isms that men are born with no value. I think that's complete horseshit. Tomi Lahren is never going to actually work to make things better because she's stupid. But beyond because she's stupid, it's because she doesn't really understand, or she doesn't really know how. She knows that men are supposed to do a thing. She knows men are supposed to be a thing, and she recognizes rather simply that they're not being thing that she wants them to be. But she doesn't recognize her power as a feminine woman. Ironically, she's not a feminine woman, but what I'm saying is that she doesn't recognize the power women would have to galvanize males to do whatever they want. You've already trained young men to be thirsty for female validation. You've already trained young men that they have to perform well to be worthy of women. So why don't you just train women to take advantage of that and be better people? People that give peace to all that effort. People who are worth all the time invested. People who make you feel good about yourself at the end of a long day. You can't. You can't because you don't know how. You can't because you've already drank in the Kool-Aid of female deification. You can't because honestly you don't really even understand what it even means to be a woman. And to be honest with you, I think that kind of hurts women just as much, honestly, as it hurts a lot of young men. We're here in this cycle where we go tit for tat, round and round with each other. And at some point, we have to break it and come to the table and make a choice. And that choice is rather simple. Do we give a damn about the society that we live in, or do we not? Do we give a damn about humanity, or do we not? And sure, it sounds all dire, it sounds really dramatic, but ultimately, we are talking about what type of world we want to live in, and what type of world do we want our children to live in. It's interesting. The concept of politics is trying to determine who's going to rule over us. It's interesting. The concept of morality is trying to figure out how we should treat one another in society. It's interesting. The concept of a male-female relationship of husband and wife are two people that are supposed to stand by each other until they both die. The interesting thing is people treat all this stuff like it's Saturday morning cartoon nonsense, but it isn't. We're talking about the world we want to live in. And while it's true, most of us have these conversations in our houses. Some houses we don't own, apartments we don't own, or we sit and we have these conversations listening to pundits that honestly could give a damn less about us. The truth of the matter is this stuff is serious, and you do have to think critically about yourself and the world you want to live in. It is true that as a young man, you have your own value and that you should take care of yourself. And honestly, maybe you shouldn't commit or submit yourself to mediocrity or to your failures. But by that token, it's also true that women have done a real piss poor job of giving men any reason to attempt to try to strive to make themselves better. And maybe it's somewhere in the middle where we can meet to get things a little bit back on track. I'm not saying life is supposed to be easy, simple, or perfect, but what I am saying is that it is true. Tomi has a half of a point in all her bullshit. That as a male, you probably shouldn't resign yourself to defeated depression. That's kind of fair. But here's the issue. No matter how you cut the cookie, human beings are creatures that work off of incentives. And while it might be the case that having a strong will, a strong moral principle code is something that you should have, it doesn't change the fact that we also live in a world that did raise us to be incentivized by having some woman give a fuck about us at the end of this long road. And if you destroy that entire incentive structure, you can't be surprised by the result that you get. Meaning that we either have to reinvent our incentive structure, or women have to be, dare I would say, better people. So that being said, I just hope you guys got something out of today's video. I doubt it. But if you did, I don't know, man, go and click the like button. Yeah, shoot. Go and click the subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. We'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.